Thank you all for coming in and joining us for this special exhibition. I will leave up to the curator and Kartiki to tell you the large context and story about the exhibition. Um, to begin with, I'd like to call Professor Tridip Surud to share a few words with us about the exhibition and what went behind it.
Namaste. It was about 12 years ago, a little more than 12 years ago, that an incident occurred which caught Bimal's attention, which was the transfer of all papers of Charles Correa, his drawings, his life's work, to the archives at Riba. And the question that he asked himself was a simple one. If somebody wanted to give it to an institution in India, what that institution would be? And the answer was none. And that's really where the CEPT archive was conceived, was created. Bimal, along with Khushru Kalyanwala, Ishita, then Saumya, and later Kartikeya and Saman have really led that. Uh, and I came in at, I should have come in at 2 points, but I came in much later in 2017 to work at the archives. Um, the fact that Christopher Alexander's archives have come to us really is a fulfillment of that vision. There could not have been a better endorsement for what we've done, what we hope to do, than this partnership that we've created with the archives and of a very major figure. It's not to belittle what we've done in those 10 years. Kamal Bhai is here and his entire oeuvre is with us. Similarly, 34 practices have been archived at CEPT, which makes it India's largest repository of architecture and design and of drawings. There is no institution in the Indian subcontinent, which is both South Asia and I think Southeast Asia, which really hopes to become a repository of this nature. It's also a tribute to the institution, to the university, because no archive pays for itself. World over, archives have to be subsidized by institutions. They have to be created, funded by institutions. And CEPT has made that commitment, and it's a long term commitment that we've made. That's what makes us a university, that's what makes us an institution of great promise and eminence. And I'm so very glad that this really is part, it was envisioned as part of our 10-year celebrations. We are in that year. So it's a great tribute, Bimal, to what you instituted and to the team which has led it over the last 10 years. Isma, thank you. I know you very cheekily said one day, and I'm not going to share, I'm going to share only a part of that, that the mark of your, you know, the fact that you can withstand all kinds of things is Christopher Alexander. And that the years that you spent there, Anjali is here, Kamal Bhai is here, so it brings the community of people who see him as an example, as an exemplar, as a teacher, are all here. So we're very grateful. And thank you for curating this for us. We know that it is going to travel. We know that there will be a book and a catalog that will emerge out of this. So this is an ongoing process. This is the first part of that edition. Thank you very much. Kartikeya?
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It's indeed a pleasure to have you all here for the opening of this exhibition. It's been a long and intense journey for us at the CEPT Archives over the last couple of years for us to reach here at this moment. And I do want to express my sincere gratitude to everyone involved in the making of this exhibition. My heartfelt thanks to Ismat Kambata, Anjali Yagnik, and the entire team at CES, Center for Environmental Structure, Maggie Mu Alexander, and Artemis Anino, especially, for making this collaboration possible. None of this would have come together without the support of the university and the exhibition team as well. So a big thank you to you all. We began ideating on the collaboration with CES almost 2 years ago, following a conversation with Anjali Ben, who introduced us to the team working on the digitization of Christopher Alexander's materials. I remember our early Zoom meeting calls and how we struggled to find a common, convenient time for our calls because we had Maggie in the UK, Artemis at Greece, Kilinoki in Germany, Howard in the US, Anjali Ben in Bangalore, and we here in Ahmedabad. And I would say to someone that let's just grab any time slot that everyone else agrees on, and we will make it convenient. So much so that once I knew I would be attending a wedding in the family exactly at the same time, and I was on my laptop, tucked away inside the groom's room while the ceremony was on, and I was being called out for a family photo. I was apparently dressed in formal traditional attire. And I remember Artemis and Howard even making a surprise observation. They were wondering what I was doing dressed like that for an archives meeting. That's on a lighter note. But yes, from our very first discussion, it got clear that once these materials traveled to India for digitization, it would be a missed opportunity for us if we simply processed them and sent it back without sharing them in this country for the first time with everyone and anyone interested in Christopher Alexander's work. That's when the seed of the exhibition was sown. At that point, Anjali Ben, the CES team, and all of us unanimously agreed on Ismail Ben as the potential curator for the exhibition project, not only because Ismat Ben has worked closely with the CES, but also because she deeply understands Alexander's ideas, his methods, and his modes of practice in many meaningful ways. And we were extremely happy that Ismat Ben very graciously accepted our request to curate the exhibition, and things began to roll. Ismat Ben deeply engaged with the archival material. She has created an exhibition that is honest and it reflects a very careful, thoughtful dialogue with Christopher Alexander's work. We hope that you will enjoy the exhibition as much as we have enjoyed putting it together for you. To end, I would like to express my special gratitude to my entire team at CEPT Archives who have risen to the occasion and stood by us throughout this process. Saman Qureshi, Naman, Sri Lakshmi, Jignasa, Deepak, Neetu, Janak, and Samir Bhai. Thank you, all of you. I would also like to thank Charuta Bhatt Kaneria, our exhibition designer, from and her team at Sparrow Designs for the exhibition design. It is now time to invite Ismat Ben to deliver her address. Let us welcome Ismat Kambata with a generous round of applause. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you all for coming. Curating this exhibition has been an absolute pleasure and a privilege, and it was somewhat serendipitous. The story began in 2020 when Anjali Yagnik, who is here, was Dean of the Faculty of Architecture at CEPT and was putting together a list of speakers for a lecture series that they were organizing. She asked me if I would do a talk about Christopher Alexander's work. And I suggested asking a former colleague and common friend of ours, Artemis Aninu, to do it instead. Those were COVID times, and the lecture series was going to happen online. Artemis is based in Greece, but both Anjali and I knew that having someone like her deliver the lecture would be invaluable for the students. Artemis has been a student first and then a colleague of Christopher's for many years and had worked closely with him on several projects and on his final book, The Nature of Order. It seemed like a good idea. So, luckily for us, Artemis agreed and the talk did happen. But what also happened is that it started a conversation between Christopher Alexander, the CES archives, Christopher Alexander and CES archives, of which Artemis is the director, and the CEPT archives here in Ahmedabad. CES is the Center for Environmental Structure, which is the practice that Christopher and his colleagues set up in 1967 as a non-profit organization. And that is where Anjali, Artemis, and I met and worked at different times, different years. For those who are not familiar with who Christopher Alexander was, can you hear? Yeah. Yeah. Okay. For those who are not familiar with who Christopher Alexander was, it would not be an exaggeration to say that he was one of the most influential thinkers of the 20th century. He was a mathematician and an architect who grew up in Britain, studied at Cambridge in the UK, and then at Harvard, and taught at the University of California, Berkeley from the mid 1960s to the late 1990s. It was serendipity too that his personal friendship with architect Kamal Mangaldas, who is also here, brought him to Ahmedabad in 1962 at the start of his career. For the next 30 years, he was based in Berkeley, but he and his colleagues at CES worked on projects across the globe. Some were built, some were not built. And towards the end of his career, he moved back to the UK, where he continued writing and painting. Sadly, he passed away in March 2022. The Christopher Alexander and CES archives were already at the time in the process of digitizing all the material and were on the lookout for more experienced, efficient, and cost-effective collaborators. CEPT archives seemed like a good fit for several reasons. One was the high level of trust between the two organizations, based on personal friendships, among other things. Two, the CEPT archives had a demonstrated capability for acquiring and organizing works of several architectural and planning practices in India. Three, they had expertise in the practical aspects of handling, digitizing, cataloging, and storing architectural material. And four, they could provide this painstaking and careful service at a fraction of the cost that CES was paying elsewhere. The fact that the CES archives was also a part, the fact that the CEPT archives was also a part of the larger design knowledge and education ecosystem at CEPT University was an added advantage. So thus started a 5-year-long collaboration that is still going on. Thank you, Anjali, for getting the ball rolling. So a round of applause, please. The first batch of material to be digitized arrived at the CEPT archives in May 2023. And following that, 3 more batches of material have been received, digitized, and are ready to be returned to CES. The team at the CES archives were happy to take on the task of digitizing the material, but they also had a much broader vision and wanted to collaborate more fully. Their vision included playing an active part in disseminating this knowledge and making original archival material accessible to architects, students, scholars, and anyone interested in Christopher Alexander's ideas in India. This exhibition is but the first step towards this goal. My congratulations and thanks to Kartike and Saman and the leadership they are the leadership at the CEPT archives. It was their idea to exhibit the material before sending it back to Berkeley, California. Their initiative was supported wholeheartedly by CEPT University, so a big thank you to the leadership there too. So please, round of applause to CEPT Archives and CEPT University. Now coming to the exhibition itself. Sorry if I'm going on a little bit, but I'd like to talk about this. So, since I had worked at CES and was familiar with Christopher Alexander's writing and teaching, I was asked to curate the exhibition, and I happily agreed. It has been a most enjoyable journey. Over the past few months, I have spent many quiet afternoons on the mezzanine floor of the archives building, transported back to the office in Martinez, California, as I plowed through page after page of correspondence, jottings, and notes. It is important to point out here that the material we have from CES was not specifically selected for its content matter, nor is it comprehensive or ordered in any particular sequence. It just happens to be what was sent here for digitizing in batches over a period of time and with no other purpose in mind. Yet the material is fascinating. It was catalogued and categorized by the CES archives before being sent here, and therefore each folder is like a small snapshot of one event, one train of thought, one moment in a project, often unconnected but with the kind of fascinating detail that only an archival collection can reveal. Working with this kind of material was both a challenge and an opportunity. I hope we have done it justice. The second challenge was that the material consisted largely of typewritten pages, faded blueprints, reports, small Polaroid photos, magazine articles, notes, and scribbles. Nothing dramatic, nothing visually seductive, nothing that would grab eyeballs. Given these challenges, it was clear that the best thing to do would be to not start with a story that we wanted to tell, but to allow the story to emerge from the material itself. And the story that emerged is not one that many people who think they know Christopher Alexander's work might expect. I hope you will take the time to discover it. Despite having been at CES from 87 to 1990 and having worked on the project for the Julian Street Inn, which you will see here, this has been a journey of discovery for me too. It has given me the chance to reflect on methods of working that I learned to use, but did not realize the full potential of, because those methods were rooted in ideas that were far ahead of their time. It also made me wonder whether the present generation of architects today might be more receptive to Christopher's ideas simply because they no longer seem so threatening or so far fetched. I will leave you to think about that as you go through the exhibition. The CEPT Archives is the first and thus far the only architectural archives in the country. Their repository of physical material has grown steadily since it was set up in 2015, and so has their collection of digital work and outreach initiatives. The team at the CEPT Archives is young, knowledgeable, and committed, and it has been a pleasure to work with them on this project. My sincere thanks to the whole team, without whose efforts this exhibition would not have happened. I would also like to thank exhibition designer Charuta Bhatt Kaneria and her team at Sparrow Design for giving physical form to this exhibition, and the exhibition team at CEPT for seeing it through. It has been an honor working on this project, and thank you all for giving me the opportunity.
Thank you, Smart Ben. Can I invite Professor Burjour and Smart Ben to open the doors and officially inaugurate the exhibition?